Ladies, gentlemen, they, thems, I'm Sibs Matiela, which can only mean one thing. You are currently watching the Private Property Podcast, where we discuss all things to do with property. I bring in all of the experts and we answer all of your burning questions and try and get you into the property market, because at privateproperty.co.za, our true heart's calling, our desire, our deepest wish is to connect you to the heart of property. Today will be no different. We are talking about building sustainably. Listen, today's case study is a video. We're going to learn more about the exciting new developments in the construction industry. I'm talking about carbon negative concrete. Now that sounds super, super interesting, especially if you consider that 8% of the global carbon dioxide emissions come from the concrete industry. I had no idea. That's mind-blowing for me. So we'll be talking more about that. If you missed last week's episode, however, which was also a very interesting episode, and you're strapped for time, I have a surprise for you, which shouldn't be a surprise if you watch regularly, but you must remember that you can now listen to the audio version of the Private Property Podcast on Spotify. So if you're planning a road trip, or you're stuck on Malibongwe or one of the other roads, or there's load shedding and now only the phone has battery because the TV's dead, and then you can't stream and Zoom and do all sorts of other things, just get this audio version of the podcast on Spotify today. And that is all the announcements I have for you right now. So without any further ado, let's start today's show. I'm Sibs Matiela, and I would like to welcome you to another exciting episode of the Private Property Podcast. This is your one-stop portal for all of your property-related queries. I'm your host, Sibs Matiela. You know that. We've got a new show here today. There are some changes, though, that I do need to tell you about. We're still bringing you all of the experts to answer all of your property-related questions. Back to today's episode, we are talking to Donette Werkman from MW Architects, who's here to tell us all about building sustainably. Donette, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for having me, Sibs.
Absolutely. So according to their company's website, Donette has been in architecture for over 20 years. She juggles creativity with work, family, and whatever her hands find to do. She feels strongly about architecture and the architect and client relationship, as well as translating the client's dreams into actual, real, tangible spaces. And before we chat to Donette, who we've just met, our producers found something super, super interesting on TikTok about now building sustainably, homes that are using things that look like Lego building blocks. I'm not sure how they make them in real size, but let's all see it together.
These blocks are like Lego for full-size buildings, so they make building homes easier and more affordable. And they're also an eco-friendly construction option, as they use 60% less CO2 emissions than conventional concrete, no water is needed during the building process, and at the end of its life, each block gets recycled and reused for manufacturing new blocks. They've been created by German company Polycare, who want to make the construction industry more sustainable, with about 8% of the world's CO2 emissions coming from cement production. There are a total of 5 different blocks which can help make any straight wall configuration, and there are door and window components too to help make a wide range of buildings, such as this awesome kindergarten they built in Namibia that only took a month to build and now provides a safe learning space for local children. They allow anyone to build their own house, as no heavy machinery is needed and no mortar or glue is needed either. Who thinks these are a great idea?
Legos, Donette. Are we doing that in South Africa? I mean, they say they built a school in Namibia. Do we have that?
Well, Sibs, I haven't seen that exact system here in South Africa, but if you really think about it, any brick is a Lego block. So yes, we do work in modular shapes and forms in South Africa, and I think bricklaying is something that's very familiar to all South Africans in the building industry.
So Donette, we're talking about building sustainably, right? Would you think, or say rather, I mean, you're an expert in the industry. You've been doing this for what, over 20 years?
Over 20 years, yes.
How did you get into architecture to begin with?
Well, I think it's my dad's fault because
Not daddy issues.
no, maybe it is daddy issues. But so my dad really insisted that me and my sister we do go to university and get a degree. And so eventually I proposed quite a few degrees that I can go and do. And eventually we settled on architecture. I haven't looked back ever since. I love working with people. I love translating people into space. And you know what? Architecture is so much more than just drawing pretty pictures. It's connecting with people. It's connecting with the environment. It's making dreams happen for people.
I'm glad you mentioned how it's connecting with the environment, because obviously now building sustainably is a massive thing. We need to reduce our carbon impact just as individuals and generally across the globe.
Yes.
And architecture and building plays a very big role in that. So would you say there are any cost-effective sort of sustainable building solutions now available in South Africa at the moment?
You know what? The biggest resource in sustainable living and building is the actual human inhabiting the building. So if we can start changing the way that we make use of buildings, the way that we use the resources, the electricity, the water, if we can start changing that and minimize our own footprint on the building that we live in, we will make a huge change. So yes, it's freely available at no cost at all. It comes to changing how we think about sustainability, about using the resources, and how we're going to reuse, remake, upcycle. You know, I think that is what we need to do.
Who would you say the current world leaders are when it comes to green buildings right now? I know a few years ago they built the tallest now building, I think it is in Cape Town, and they were so proud to say it's a completely green building. You know, the toilets do a flushing thing, and it's like totally off the grid and stuff. So I think we're like on the list somewhere, but who would you say like the global leaders really are at the moment?
Well, I think definitely when it comes to green building and green building technology, the Chinese and the Canada is really up there. We must be very wary of greenwashing when we look at, or when we actually take a look at these buildings.
Define greenwashing for me.
So greenwashing is when it's like peacocking. We say, oh, I've got this wonderful green building and look at all the technology I'm putting in. But so sometimes it's just like ticking the boxes and saying, yes, I've done this. And then it's very similar to what we see at the moment at the Soccer World Cup. They've got all these wonderful stadiums, but there's all these air cons in, and people are flying there all the time. So, and
flying out, because Qatar is so small, people have to fly in and out immediately after a game.
So nobody actually takes in account what the impact of all those people flying in will be. So, and that's why so often we can say, yes, a wonderful, beautiful building. And that is what greenwashing is, to say that, yes, I've ticked all the boxes, I've got all this wonderful materials, my CO2 emissions is like very low on this building, or I'm carbon neutral. But is the people that's using it actually carbon neutral in their hearts and in their thinking?
Okay, so if we bring it back to sort of individual homeowners, you're an architect, you love what you do, you love to connect people and sort of translate their vision and who they are into not just drawing pretty pictures like you said, but actual homes that they will inhabit and live in. And so with that in mind, you know, I know the aesthetic is a really important part of what it is that you do, but now given the challenges that we're facing and the changes that we need to make for sustainability and protecting the environment, where does architecture now meet, you know, the human being?
So I think architects are really the key role players in making sustainability happen. So there's always 3 pillars to say sustainability. It will be environmental sustainability, economical sustainability, and social sustainability. And I think a good architect will always keep those 3 pillars in mind. Not only the aesthetics, yes, beautiful things make people really happy, but We will be successful if the people in it is also happy and it's conducive to their safety and bringing out, a humane touch to it. Then economically sustainable. Is it really necessary to build homes that cost us 10, 11 million more? I mean, it's mind-boggling to see where building costs have gone at the moment. Is it really necessary to do that? Is that really what I need to be happy? So I want to go back to that socially sustainable. What does a social sustainable space look like? And an architect can make that happen. And then obviously environmental. There's so many things that we can do as architects through our passive design of a building. Just orientation.
Yeah.
Where it's situated. How far you're going to travel from your home to where you need to work. For instance, that is something that we can keep in mind. Ventilation, cross-ventilation, lighting. It's all stuff that you can do with passive design control without, really costing an arm and a leg.
By using nature and using the environment around you, using the power of the sun or the power of the wind to do things that I'm hearing you. It's like it comes down to using the natural resources we have in the most efficient but also respectful way to the environment.
And just applying your mind actively to it to see how can I, if I orientate my building just slightly differently, can I bring in more light? How can I, where's the trees? Where's the raining wind coming from? So those are typical things that architects should keep in mind, and I think we can be key role players in it.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but let's consider now where we happen to be as a country. We are, I think today it's stage 6 or stage 227 million thousand trillion of load shedding, where we don't have the energy. And so we're using fossil fuels, for instance, to get that energy to begin with. We're out of it, then it's back, then we're overusing it when it comes back. So now when we have to deal with these issues like, the grid being unstable, yes. How do we answer or find a solution to that doesn't harm the environment?
I want to go back to what I've said earlier, is that if we're not going to change our own attitude towards our resource consumption, it doesn't help that we put up solar panels and get inverters and batteries and all of that. We really need to change the way that we consume electricity and water, especially. We need to start looking. When do you do your washing? How much washing do you do? Do you always use a warm cycle? Can you wash it with cold water? Do you really need to wash it in a machine? Can you wash it maybe by hand? How do you recycle that water?
No, we moved from washing things by hand.
Yeah, but maybe,
No, Donette, I'm very okay. Fine, I hear you.
Especially, and I think that is a little part of the problem.
Yeah.
We are not willing to make those sacrifices for the environment.
It's the convenience of it. It's the convenience, right? You separate the items and then you put them in because you don't want your red dress to stain your white shirt. And, you do the thing. And the washing machines come with different cycles now that say, oh, this one is like eco-friendly and...
I know. But still, so even further back than that, maybe we should look at which clothes we buy, not only.
Slow fashion.
How is it going to wash? Do I need to iron it? If I don't need to use my iron, I'm using less electricity. And I know it's such a wonderful time to be in where everything is convenient and convenience is at our doorstep.
You push a button and it's done.
Yes, I've been chatting yesterday to a couple that's in China that we're designing a house for here in George now. And they said the one thing that's worrying them of coming back is that everything will take longer than 30 minutes to be delivered to the doorstep. And I was like, well, is that really the biggest problem you're facing?
Did you die? Yeah, I hear you.
And we are so used to consuming. But honestly, in my heart, I believe that is the thing that should change. We should change the way that we consume. It doesn't help that we just keep on adding to the grid, adding to the grid, adding to the grid. We need to stabilize the grid through our consumption.
Okay.
Yes.
So, without telling me to hand wash my clothes, because I'm not going to do it, but I'll do other stuff. Like, what other quick fixes would you suggest if I'm trying now to be energy saving and conscious and responsible in my own home?
Okay. I think it's very easy. Start with the small things. Start with checking out your light bulbs. Make sure that you're using energy saving light bulbs. Look at your appliances. Make sure that if you need to replace an appliance, that you buy one that's energy efficient. Always remember, and I remember in the Afrikaans homes, it was always like, and I would say, oh, I see, the rich people are here again. If you leave all your lights on.
Yeah.
Switch off your lights if you're not using it. It's the simple things. Catch rainwater. Put a simple bucket under your gutter outlet and use that water to water your plants.
I do that.
Yeah.
But
and it's such a simple, easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And yet, we all don't do it.
It's true.
Remember those days when there was the water restrictions? Yeah, all over the country. I think there's still some water restrictions now in the Eastern Cape. But where we had the bucket in the shower. Keep on doing that. I think we stopped doing it when the restrictions were lifted.
Yeah, because then the water came back, it was flowing.
It's fine. Now we're all good.
I don't have to use my shower water to flush my toilet anymore.
Yes.
But should I keep doing it? Is it great for the environment? Does it reduce my carbon footprint? Absolutely. Yes. So I think I agree with you in that it is a changing of the mindset thing. And it does start with personal touches and decisions that you make for yourself and starting with the small things.
And we really need to look at how we travel and then where we stay. I know this is not related to our homes as such, but is it really necessary to take that 1 kilometer drive to the shop instead of walking?
Donette, we live in
Johannesburg.
Johannesburg.
Argue on this one again, but yes, Sips, is it really necessary to drive 1 kilometer?
Yes, because I will get mugged. They will take my things, and then I won't even have gotten the milk because I will have lost my life.
Unfortunately,
but
that's
I
a
hear what
reality
you're saying.
in South Africa, and that is why we need to build sustainable social structures and communities.
Got you. Like make the shopping center inside the building that I live in, so I don't have to drive to the shops far away.
Very true.
I love this for us. Okay, if someone wants to build their dream home from scratch and they wanted to develop a green home, what are some of the things they would need to consider?
I've touched on it earlier. Definitely take a look at where you buy your stand. Is it close to where you will be working? How close is to the schools? Location. Not necessarily because it's just convenient for you to drive less, but because it's good for the environment. So first of all, pick your sites very carefully and consciously. Then passive design. There's a lot that we can do with passive design. And I'm talking about orientation, facing the sun. In South Africa, Southern Hemisphere, we all face to the north. It's ideal to kind of orientate your house a little bit more northeast. We catch that early morning sun. Overhangs becomes very important here. To screen us, it's very hot in South Africa. It is dry. Screening from the western sun, so that we make sure that the building doesn't gain a lot of heat. So we need to look at the amount of glass that we're using. Yes, I know glass is wonderful and it's beautiful, but how are we going to screen it? You also want the glass because it brings in the natural light. Natural light keeps the lights off for longer.
And
Once
the
again,
heaters.
yes. So that is something that we can do without, spending all that money. Rather go and buy that, fancy carpet.
Yeah.
That's sustainably sourced. Remember,
slow fashion carpet.
Yes. And so through the design, that passive design of the building, I think you can actually get there 90% in doing a very environmental, sustainable home. Choosing your materials carefully. Where do they come from? Is it imported all the way from Europe coming in with a plane? Or can you maybe reuse something? Can you use recycled materials? Can you go and buy some secondhand building materials somewhere? That's all the type of things I think any one of us can do if you now build a new home.
So I'm curious as to what the availability is in our country right now and within the architecture and building space that can now help you build or add or extend in a sustainable and responsible way.
I think there's definitely options available and also better options available. Once again, I just want to come back to make sure that it's local. That's the thing. If it's sourced locally, we're already having a sustainable, economical solution to it. It didn't travel that far to reach us. And then, yes, look at your bamboo floors. I think these days, all of the manufacturers, if they've got a green solution, they do advertise it. It's like the appliance that says AAA energy consumption. It's available. Be aware, once again, of the greenwashing. Something that we all think, yes, let's get solar panels, but did we really think about all the little minerals and stuff that goes into making it and being mined all over the world? So
no solar anymore.
No, we're going to do it. But yes, we need to be conscious of the decisions that we make. Where do we source it? And why are we using it? Do I really need it? I think that's what we should ask on every single choice that we make in our building project. It's, why am I doing this? How am I going to do it? And what's the impact of this?
Your ideal without greenwashing. It's all you. How do you make it? What does that house look like? What is it made of?
It will be an existing house that I'm upcycling already. So I'm not putting something down. Once again, I'm not putting a new footprint down. It will be smaller. It will be smaller, definitely. I will make sure that I've got good lighting, good natural ventilation, cross ventilation. I will catch my rainwater, and I will have
in a JoJo tank.
Yes, maybe JoJo, anything, bucket. I will have a veggie garden. I will have a big tree to sit under, and that's it.
Donette, that was all very interesting. Listen, when we come back, we're going to learn about carbon negative concrete. I don't know if it's something you guys are using there in the architecture space in South Africa, but we're going to learn about what it is, where it comes from. But first, here's some tips on how to make your next home improvement project more sustainable.
We built a simple, sustainable, off-grid home on a modest budget. And here's our top 3 things to consider before going down this path. Number 1, know your zone. Designing specifically for your climate lowers your bills and improves your comfort. So head to yourhome.gov.au to find your zone. Number 2, choose a site that has a north orientation. This allows you to harness the power of nature's free resources such as the sun and cooling breezes. Number 3, know what you want before you engage a builder or designer. Changes and alterations are expensive and time-consuming.
Listen, at the beginning of this episode, I told you a mind-boggling fact about the fact that the concrete industry contributes 8% of global carbon emissions. We found a TikToker with some very interesting facts about this industry, so take a look.
Future buildings be made from algae. Let's find out. Concrete is the most widely used man-made material in existence. It's second only to water as the most consumed resource on the planet. But concrete has a massive carbon footprint. Cement is a source of 8% of world's CO2 emissions. In fact, if cement industry was a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter. The era of sustainable construction has finally arrived. Scientists have created the world's first eco-friendly cement from algae. The microalgae called coccolithophores. Yes, that is a mouthful. These tiny organisms are covered with microscopic plates of calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is also a key component of limestone limestone, which is used to make cement. The team at University of Colorado Boulder used cocoa lithophores to grow calcium carbonate and turn it into limestone alternative, with which it's possible to make concrete. Surprisingly, this production process is not only carbon neutral, it's actually carbon negative, as the microalgae remove the carbon dioxide from the environment and store it as calcium carbonate. Therefore, concrete formed out of this cement could kick off a new era of sustainable construction around the world.
Donette, that was a very interesting TikTok. How far away do you think we are from carbon negativity and Cocoa Pop's cement?
Well, I think that's definitely the future of all building materials. I think that just globally, this is where we're going on finding alternative solutions to the use of limes and plastics and steel. And, you know, we need to reduce that. So I do believe that we are going to see it more frequently. I haven't seen anything like that in South Africa. I would love to see it. I think it was Mercedes-Benz that introduced a leather lookalike from mushrooms.
Yes,
Yes.
vegan leather.
Vegan leather. Yeah. It's, you know, because we need to bring down the amount of cattle on Earth. And how amazing is that? And I do believe that we are going to see more of that in future.
Do you have any last pearls of wisdom you'd like to share with our viewers?
Sips, fly less, walk more, and eat more veggies.
Eat that you grow yourself.
That you grow
in
yourself.
your own veggie garden with your grey water that you caught when it was raining.
Yes. And maybe that is not the architect answering. Maybe that is just the sustainable me saying we need to change the way we think about our consumption.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for all of your insight and just letting us into your brain. It was really, really insightful and super, super helpful. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sips, and it was a wonderful pleasure, and I hope I can design a house for you one day.
I hope once I have the money for the Cocoa Pop concrete, then I will definitely phone you.
Okay, cool.
Before I let you go, I must remind you, if you don't have the time to watch this episode, we are on Spotify. So you can go onto Spotify and just look for the Private Property Podcast, and you can download this episode and listen to it from anywhere in the world. Otherwise, you can watch this episode and all our previous episodes on our YouTube page. Can't wait to see all of your comments on our Twitter pages, on our Facebook pages, and especially on our YouTube. And cannot wait for all of your subscriptions on our Spotify channel. It's the Private Property Podcast. My name is Sibs Matiela, and I will see you next time.